Welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Boykin, and I'm here in beautiful Boulder Creek, California, where the flannel shirt is our state flag, the pit bull is our state bird, and cannabis is our state flower. I am having some difficulty hailing Mr. Gordan Dimmack on the Zoom chat here, so he'll hop in when he hops in. In the meantime, Jason Bermas will be on shortly, and I'm really looking forward to another chat with him. If you guys are unfamiliar with Jason Bermas, he's a genuine badass. And if you've ever seen the documentary on 9/11 Loose Change, then you are familiar with Jason Bermas. You just may not be aware of it. But because this is how things roll, and because we are, dealing in the medium of the interwebs, I am going to go ahead and jump to an article that I read by Chris Hedges, whom I love dearly. There are few people that can pull off the Philip Seymour Hoffman look and get away with it, and Hedges is definitely one of those guys. Hedges, if you'll remember, was fired from the New York Times for telling the truth about the war in Iraq, and kind of lean social justice warrior in a way that I don't necessarily agree with. But you can't agree with somebody all the time. I had a gentleman named Marcus Cage on my show a couple of days ago, and he wrote an article making his case for impeachment. I'm going to pivot and kind of, I'm going to give you Chris Hedges' case against impeachment is what I'm going to do. So, and I can throw the link to this article in the show notes here later. It's out of Truthdig. Impeaching Donald Trump would do nothing to halt the deep decay that beset the American Republic. Right. Now, I've made the point a handful of times on this show that impeachment would be dumb. It would only increase Trump's base. He always comes out of these bullshit fucking inquiries or witch hunts, or however you want to phrase it. He comes out smelling like a rose every single time. I wanna focus specifically on what Hedges says right here, and then I want to jump to the very last paragraph because that's where it all hit home for me. He says, impeachment is about cosmetics. You guys know that. We talk about that. It's about repealing the public face of empire with a political mandarin, such as Joe Biden, himself steeped in corruption and obsequious service to the rich and corporate power, who will carry out the same suicidal policies with appropriate regal decorum. The ruling elites have had enough of Trump's vulgarity, stupidity. I just lost it. And staggering ineptitude. Ouch. They turned on him not over an egregious impeachable offense. There have been numerous impeachable offenses, including the use of the presidency for personal enrichment, inciting violence and racism, passing on classified information to foreign interference. I don't know if that's true or not. Obstruction of justice, and a pathological inability to tell the truth, but because he made the fatal mistake of trying to take down a fellow member of the ruling elite. Let me jump to the bottom paragraph here real quick, but I want to talk about that with you guys for a second. And by the way, thank you for joining me today. I hope that these will become regular events and cool as fuck. That last line there. I said the moment that Trump got elected, they'll let him hang around until he pisses off the money. And once the money pisses him off, he's done. Hedges basically says the same thing that I've been saying for almost 4 years now. The president is the public face of the unelected bureaucrats that essentially run the show. Every time Donald Trump goes off script, every time he tweets out about or tries to legislate or conduct a military strike via tweet, his own party slaps him down. Every single person in his cabinet slaps him down. He's not allowed to go off script. His bills. Oh, I've got people screaming to turn up the volume, Bear. Okay, I'll get to that.
We are here to serve. Let's see, that one is this one.
Sorry about that, guys.
We'll get there in just a second. Try that.
Let me know if that's any better. And if it is, then killer. I guess I should have been paying more attention to the green dots my own damn self. And we should be good. All right. All right. There we go. So if you missed some of that, if it was hard to hear, I apologize. Second time that we're trying it from this location, and we're still working out some bugs. Okay. Chris Hedges, in a very declarative sentence, laid it all out. The reason that Trump is getting impeached right now isn't because he did anything that was actually necessarily impeachable, but he's going after one of their own. Very, very clearly targeting a political opponent, the person who we're told is the front runner for the nomination for the 2020 election to go up against him. I don't believe that for a fucking second. I think Biden is being paraded around in order to raise money for a party that was heavily looted by the Clintons and the Hillary for Victory campaign. Hedges points out that replacing Trump with, as he puts it, a political Mandarin like Joe Biden is exactly what the elites want. The point's been made by a handful of people over the last several years that that people freak out on Trump in the Democratic Party and the Republican leadership, and he completely lost conservative outlet and. What was that? The Weekly Standard, I think. Bill Kristol's bullshit rag. They're mad because he's doing all the shit that you're supposed to do behind closed doors and in quiet. He's doing all of that in public. He does it with zero fucking tact, and the ruling elites really don't like that. He's great to provide distraction. He's great to sow division in the American public. At least the people in the media establishment and the people that listen to that crap, they are truly more divided than ever. They're not looking for commonality with their neighbors. They're not looking at you know, maybe we're getting fucked around by this ruling class, and maybe we should put aside this notion of party, realize that we live in a duopoly, and fucking do something about it. That's the last thing the money wants. So the money is having Trump impeached for going after Hunter Biden, who deservedly needs to be gone after, and Joe Biden by extension, because he's on goddamn videotape saying, I withheld military aid until they fucking looked the other way about my kid. They had a defense minister resign. in Ukraine, it's incredibly, I don't know. It's I guess typical. The only reason Enron went down is because they took the wrong money. They took the ruling elite's money. The only reason Martin Shkreli, the fucking pharma douchebag who jacked up the price of insulin 715% or whatever it was, EpiPens, that piece of shit. He got caught running a fucking Ponzi scheme. That's why he's in trouble. He took the wrong money. I've said since Trump got elected, as soon as he pisses off the money, he's done. There's nothing, there's no greater sin amongst the ruling elites than exposing how corrupt you all are. That's why they had to go after Trump with some bullshit like Russiagate, and they couldn't go after him for anything real. If they go after him with anything real, it automatically blows back on them. The argument that the emoluments clause could be used went right out the window the minute this information became public about Hunter Biden. That's a direct political tactic to be able to at least publicly cancel out the narrative that only Trump abused this privilege and allowed his family, positions of privilege that they didn't earn. Meanwhile, you've got a counter argument about fucking Ivanka Trump and her role as unelected, unappointed diplomat at the UN. I don't know if you guys watched any of the UN over the last several days. There was some crazy shit that went down. I'm hoping to discuss that with a couple of people over the course of the week. Let me pull up the closing paragraph, because when I read it, and I read it again, it suddenly made sense why they're going through with impeachment, because it's a dumb tactic. They're going to lose. It's not going to help anyone, anywhere, anything electorally. There's Jason. Jason, I'm gonna wrap up a point here, and then I will introduce you, if that's all right.
Yep, sounds good. You hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine. Thank you for being a part of this today.
Sure.
I will be right back with you. Okay. So Hedges closes out the article saying, if we don't succeed in overthrowing corporate power, the explosive devices mailed to Trump critics and leaders of the Democratic Party, including Obama, Clinton, and Joe Biden, along with George Soros, James Clapper, and CNN, allegedly by Caesar Psyop Jr., will become acceptable form of political expression. Such assassination attempts will, if left unchecked, eventually succeed. Anarchic lawlessness and tit-for-tat forms of political murder will swiftly turn the United States into a failed and terrifying state. And then it dawned on me that was probably the point. There is no easier way to implement authoritarian, autocratic rule than by engaging in a nationwide police action to cull the riots that you created. I hope you guys check out the article, and I hope you give me some feedback on that. With me right now, and I'm very, very happy to introduce this guy. He was a part of a recent Free Assange vigil. He is a documentary filmmaker and one of the more thorough, direct, open, and honest content creators we have going for us right now. I am very pleased to introduce Jason Bermas. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, man.
I really appreciate it. I know you have about a half an hour. If you just jumped into the back end of that, I'd like to get your thoughts on what I was closing with there. It was Chris Hedges has this article about why impeachment is stupid. And if you skip over the SJW rhetoric in it and kind of cut to the meat of it, he has some really, really good points.
Well, other than the fact that I did catch the tail end where you're talking about the mail bombings, I'd like to remind everybody that one of the ones they didn't seem to pin on him that occurred like 2 days before was at George Soros' house. He got a similar letter, kind of got downplayed in the media. And, I don't know to what extent that guy was responsible for those things, with his MAGA van and his mental health. But as you said, anytime that you start framing it in that perspective and that the solution is more authoritarianism, things like red flag laws, etc., where there is no due process, you obviously have a great danger.
I agree, and I've made the joke since this thing happened that the guy's last name is Psyop. It sounds like the guy's last name is Psyop. They gave us Caesar Psyop to mail bombs that didn't explode, who was cartoonishly perfect for the role.
It was cartoonishly perfect. I'm not going to speculate as to what happened there other than there were serious, suspicious circumstances and some anomalies, and even a lot of the mainstream and the so-called mainline alternative media obviously immediately picked up on that. The guy got convicted of it. I'm not sure how much time he's going to do, because you never know with these things. You look at somebody like John Hinckley Jr. that shot a president, and he's walking around on the streets.
Well, his parents were having dinner with the Bushes the night before.
It was actually, so Neil Bush.
Oh, Neil, that's right.
Neil Bush was scheduled to have dinner with his brother the next evening. Or it was either that evening or the next evening. CBS reported it. There was a couple other things. It was in my film Invisible Empire, but they did have a relationship with the Bush family. On top of that, they were donors to HW back in the day.
Yeah. I had John Kiriakou on my show, and I asked him why the playbook never changes. And he said, well, it's because the CIA really isn't as clever as they think they are. And when they get caught, there's never any real ramifications. Are you there?
The big problem here, I'm here. I'm sorry, you were a little in and out, but I would say that one of the things that I focused on with Mick West when he asked me about solutions is, number one, you've got to get the money out of politics. Lobbying can't be a thing. And number two, we have to take away all this executive power, right? We used to have, and when I say executive power, I don't mean Trump power. I mean the executive branch of the government, because Trump has little to no power in that structure anymore. We don't really have a constitutional republic. Post-World War II, we built more and more of what I would call a national security state, where if things were just too iffy, the public didn't need to know. And then a lot of these things became offshoots, not even real intelligence agencies, but instead corporate entities that were owned by intelligence agencies. And obviously this was fully exacerbated after 9/11, putting Homeland Security into place, having more and more black sites and proxy networks, right, that are out there.
Right.
And that's what we're stuck with today. Meanwhile, the public is worried about a quote-unquote CIA whistleblower who heard something on a Ukrainian phone call on a subject.
No, secondhand heard something. He admitted it was hearsay. And a known CIA agent tasked to the White House, which is a thing that happens. It's an aspirational goal within the CIA. If you do good and you're a good analyst, you get rewarded further in your career with a year or two detail to the White House. And there are agents who, graduate up through the ranks, making sure that they're following the CIA's orders every time, regardless of whatever else they're told, who eventually get that White House detail. This guy is one of those guys. He's there under orders. Not because Trump picked him, but because the CIA put him there. And he admitted that this was hearsay.
And you know what? Who cares if it wasn't? That's what I don't understand. Here's the thing. When did the scandal about the scandal become the scandal? And if you look at what I'm saying here is, in April, it was in some mainline news, I covered it, that this was a crooked deal regarding Joe Biden's son, in which he was given $50,000 a month essentially for doing nothing and a $1.5 million payout that nobody can understand. Now, there are other governments at play here, mainly the Ukrainian one, where the prosecutor looked into this and was like, hey, this is terrible. Maybe we're going to do something about it. So then Biden brags, sitting next to Richard Haass in January of 2018, that he flies there, and the intent is supposedly to give $1 billion in military loan aid to the Ukraine. Now, Biden sits up there and he says, I was assured by two separate people, I believe Poroshenko was one of them at the time, that this guy was going to be fired, and he hadn't been fired. And so Biden said to him, look, either you fire him or you don't get the $1 billion. The guy goes, you're not the president of the United States. And, Joey B's up there. He's like, call him, see what he says.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you kidding? This is $1 billion. This is like, let's talk right now. This guy's bragging about literally withholding $1 billion over Ukraine if the prosecutor investigating his son is not fired. And we're not talking about a deliberation. He tells him he's on a plane in 6 hours. So we could do the press conference. We couldn't. You got a daughter? Maybe I'll inappropriately touch her while you wait.
Adam Schiff's whole point. Adam Schiff's whole point is that Trump is acting like a mob boss. And we do. We've got Joey B from Scranton fucking swinging his little pecker around like, I'm the boss, I'm the boss. And
he's the choice. He's the guy they're pushing as the establishment candidate.
Well, I have a theory that they know that he's not going to make it, that they know that he's going to tank, and that they're trying to squeeze as much donor money out of him as possible because the Clintons looted the fucking DNC, and they need to get some money back in their coffers. Once his donations start to run thin, and they will because of this impeachment shit, once that happens, he's gone. Elizabeth Warren.
I don't know, man. I don't think anybody believes Warren is electable. I think they believe Kamala Harris is more electable. And by the way, Kamala Harris is just more cutthroat and willing to say whatever they want. So, a Kamala Harris, Cory Booker ticket, imagine if that won, I might leave the country. I've joked about it. But I mean, that's a country-leaving ticket right there. If that actually came to fruition, I might look into something else.
Expating somewhere near the equator?
I mean, just somewhere else. I mean, I cannot believe that those people... I mean, first of all, Booker had no base. He never had any base. He's up there to shill out. Gabbard has beat him in every major and minor poll they've held since they've been holding polls on this. That's largely ignored. But they love him, man. They push him on the television. He's just a poor guy from Jersey trying to lift everybody up, He's the next-gen Bill Clinton.
And nobody likes that guy. Like, I've never personally met a Cory Booker supporter. They gave him Rosario Dawson for a beard, and everyone went, oh, God damn it. Instead of, oh, isn't that cool? No, everyone went, oh, fuck, really? And the dude, you can tell he's a product. You can tell that all you have to do is walk up to him, pull a string, and he'll say whatever you told him to. You can tell that. There's a video of him, heaping praise on Betsy DeVos for her leadership in charter schools because he got Jersey a whole bunch of her charter schools. And then you take those words out of context and put him in a speech where he's saying the exact same thing about Barack Obama or Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton. The words don't change. The only thing that changes is the name of the person he's talking to and the event that he's at. But you're right. That's a country leaving ticket, man. I got a kid in first grade and I'd be thinking about it,
I don't know how it could get much worse. I mean, first of all, let's talk about what the national conversation is right now. We're now We're past Russian collusion, right? We're past obstruction of justice, which was the new Russian collusion. They really thought they were going to be able to run with that the Democratic base would go with that. But eventually that faded away, even though Shiffy McGee there pushed it as far as it could possibly go into what was the next level, impeachment inquiry. And it took this now we're acting like there's never been a time where somebody in power, say a president, got dirt on somebody who was opposing them from a foreign nation. Now, I want to point to a video, a little clip in Invisible Empire while I'm talking about globalism and all this other stuff, and especially the Bilderberg Group, right?
Yeah.
So Brian Lamb, who's done some pretty amazing interviews over the years, I give Brian Lamb credit because, aside from all the establishment points, there's always about 5 to 10 minutes of what would be very uncomfortable if the person on C-SPAN didn't already know there was less than 500 people ever going to see this, So they're talking, and he talks as a big new Brzezinski, and he talks about the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, and he says, these are people like you. That's a big new. And if you don't know who Brzezinski is, Brzezinski spans many administrations in various roles, from Carter's national security advisor to a protege, if not a partner, with Henry Kissinger over the years,
Yep.
But also into an advisor on the Obama campaign in the initial rings and of his presidential office as well. So this is a big player. He gets asked, about this, and he's like, people like you, and he kind of laughs for a second. He says, look, in any political establishment, there will be sort of over-the-table and under-the-table arrangements. And that's a given. Now, when you're Joey fucking B, apparently in front of a crowd of millionaires at the CFR, you're allowed to joke about $1 billion fucking strong arm, and nobody gives a fuck. There's not one person on Fox that's playing that video. There's not one person on MSNBC that's playing that video. Jason Bermas is about the only person playing that video, getting maybe 5,000, 10,000 views on it on his little YouTube channel. And even when we did the story for We Are Change, what did they get? 20, 30,000 hits? That's a drop in the bucket one day or 1 week of talking about this, when this goddamn media is hammering home Trump's betraying the country. He told the Ukraine it was okay to investigate a guy from 2 years that said, fuck you, pay me. Like, seriously.
And again, this is why Russiagate failed. This is why obstruction failed. This is why going after him on the emoluments clause failed. The Democrats can't go after Trump on anything real. They have to fabricate some shit. Every time they go after him on something real, there's immediate blowback because they're just as fucking dirty, and they know it. They're just hoping that, I guess they're hoping for the division, because the division plays into their favor, because then they get to keep grifting while regular people keep fighting over whatever dumb shit they're getting fed from TV.
Listen, that's 100% the game, because let's be honest about it. So again, on this, I encourage people to check out this Mick West podcast, because I thought it was really good. Opposing sides should have chats. So one of the things I said to him was, we brought up the Biden thing. He's like, well, can't we do both? And I go, listen, man, if there was any honesty in the field, I go, first of all, it would have been a huge scandal that our Congress and then our Senate voted to get us the fuck out of Yemen when most people don't even know we're in it. All right? And for him to veto that and then look at his cronies' business connections, that's the kind of impeachment inquiry I'm looking at. Let's look at something like, you want to go after the guy, let's go after the guy. I go, there's plenty. There's a plenty. I go, one of the things I didn't bring up, but we could have, is the leaked OPCW report, which revealed, even though these people who were investigating the Syrian chemical attack that caused us to shoot missiles into their country,
again,
that the Trump administration propagated, they put out this public report, Assad's a bad guy. He did this. Then you look at the internal investigation by one of their lead investigators for years, not some rookie, okay? And he clearly states and shows you how these canisters were placed there and staged, and there was no chemical attack, which if you were following it in the days after, with Pearson Sharp and Robert Fisk, who were on the ground saying, I'm in the middle of this place where there's supposed to be a chemical attack, and everybody says there wasn't one. And I haven't seen the CNN lady who smelled a black backpack and smelled bleach. I'll tell you, what does it look like what happened? Why not? That's it. Let's get an inquiry into that. When did Trump know that was fake? When did the OPCW know that was fake? When Pompeo, Bolton, Mattis, all these guys, none of them are ever held accountable. That's the issue, my friend.
Not only that,
and, they
but
don't want to impeach him in real. They want to inquiry on real.
There was direct evidence pointing to the white helmets for all of that. And there's every single member of Congress, Trump, half of Trump's cabinet that heap praise on these guys, this organization that hold up the white helmets like they're the fucking good guys, when we've got mountains of evidence for years that displays who and what they are. But you're right, if we wanted an honest conversation, if people weren't playing into the narrative, if quote-unquote independent media didn't spend 99% of their time on the fucking horse race and fucking told people what was going on, we would have a lot more fucking action.
I agree, we used to. Back in the day, for those that don't know, when I was a part of InfoWars, in the 2008 to 2010 era, we did have a lot of action. There were people on the streets. There was over 1,000 people showing up to Bilderberg in Chantilly, Virginia. We had 10,000 people down at Ground Zero on the 5th anniversary of 9/11. There were still people in the streets saying Iraq had to stop through Code Pink and others. Cindy Sheehan had a venue. So back in the day, when, Tomorrow's News Today really was Tomorrow's News Today, and not some sort of extension of bullshit on behalf of an agenda that I just can't stomach. I mean, to be honest, I still have people thinking like there's superhero cape nonsense going on in this administration. And I'm like, look, can we have an adult conversation? I'm more than willing to call out this Biden thing. In fact, I'm the only one that I know of calling it out to the extent that we just did here and showing the evidence for it, right, at all, mainstream or otherwise. Meanwhile, you want to focus on imagination land indictments and McCain being held at trial at Guantanamo Bay, which plays into the narrative. We need a Guantanamo Bay. We need black sites. We need to torture people. We need martial law in this country, which we don't, which is dangerous, which we need to prevent. And anybody really, truly listening out there should realize this. There's no administration that's going to come in and round up all the bad guys. Because guess what? There's a lot of gray area. I hate to tell that to people, but what's the moral level of who we're going to go after and who we're going to prosecute? We're dealing with some real demons here. I mean, is it the guy that decided to pull the trigger on, a bombing campaign, a shock and awe that would take the lives of 3,000 to 10,000 people right there? Or, is it somebody that likes to diddle boys? Maybe he hasn't killed one. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, there's plenty of these monsters. I mean, are we taking out Dennis Hassard, who was labeled a serial child molester by a judge, yet has never served a day in prison for abusing children? Ever. Not once. He went to jail for 15 months as an old man in a private wing because of some money laundering and some backdoor bullshit. He was paying off one of his victims. Not because he was doing this since he was a gym teacher and a coach with supposedly no power whatsoever.
Exactly.
We got a long ways, man. And it's not going to be one administration. And I don't know if it's going to be administration at all. It's going to be the people finally getting fed up with bullshit. If it ever happens.
I say all the time on this show that we're never going to vote or legislate our way out of an oligarchy. That's not going to happen. I've said multiple times, and I give all the credit to Caitlin Johnstone for this. Every single one of our isms have failed. For whatever reason or, whatever influence, our isms haven't worked, no matter what they were. We need to move past that. And that's what it's going to take. I don't know what that looks like, Jason. I don't know.
I got a great thing for you. So that Carlin quote went viral when he was talking about Dice Clay and punching down. And in a lot of ways, I'm going to be doing a video on that. That's kind of how I feel like the majority of the alternative media is. It used to be, hey, let's get a John Bolton on video and ask him a real question. Now it's let's trigger a leftist with a pink hat on her head that's making $15,000 a year at a coffee shop. That might go viral instead. That's punching down. But what people really missed, I found like the first 13 minutes of that posted a couple of years ago on YouTube, is that Carlin had some really great things to say about those isms. For instance, he said, look, I can't stand groups of people. I hate them. It's awful. He goes, but individuals, they come up to me. It's great. You can find the good in somebody. You can have a conversation with them. And normally, he's like, you see the good in people. It's like when they start getting into groups of like 2 and then 4 and then 5, and then they're wearing armbands. And all of a sudden, they're talking about this and that. And that was always the thing for me in 9/11 Truth, before Truther existed and all that. There wasn't an outfit. There wasn't a political party you had to join. You didn't have to vote a certain way or believe something. All you were doing was calling for a new investigation based on evidence and saying we got a long way to go in this country. And it was all sides of the spectrum that were doing it. And that's what it looks like. It looks like decentralization. What We Are Change did was say, hey, you got a camera. This is back in the day when not everybody had a cell phone, obviously, and you could just plug somebody out. And that's when activism existed. That's when Rudy Giuliani couldn't ride the subways, or neither could Bloomberg. And, that's when even George H.W. Bush and his minions like Karl Rove had to watch their backs. And it wasn't like what it is today, where people are going after politicians once in a while based on some political movement on Twitter that's probably funded by a billionaire, right? And they're going to stand out there on an identity politics issue, not the true civil rights. They're going to change it on gender and racial lines. And I got news for you. That ain't the new civil rights. Your bank account is the new civil rights. You're making less than 10, 20 fucking $1 million a year. Even if you think you got it, you're nothing. You're nothing to these people unless you can get them something. Period. You're a plebe. You're nothing. You are the serf class. This predator class looks at you like an ant. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian. That should be clear. That should be clear with a social credit score in China that's slowly making its way into the United States through what? Not government.
Credit reports.
Corporations like Apple. Apple has a social credit score on you. You got a little iPhone, you got a nice little pod and a device, and you like Apple Music. Listen, this is the new currency. That's the thing. You're also currency to these people. Your information means something to them. That's it. You're another number sign, man. You might as well be binary code in the simulation that Elon Musk is pushing, because these people don't give a fuck about you. And that's the new civil rights, in my opinion, until we can have a world where we're not divided, where there is a way. Everybody's talking about automation. That's a real thing. Yet there's nothing going on where we're changing the education system where somebody getting out of high school or some 2 or 4 year university will have a job that means something and is future-proof. We have done nothing for that. Instead, we got a guy up there with no tie, which is fine. I like Dana White too, Andrew Yang. But you're going to offer everybody $12,000 a year? And that's not just going to spike prices? What? We're supposed to give the fuck up as humanity? We're worthless pieces of shit? That's how I look at it.
People flip out on me when I tell them that the fucking UBI as proposed by Andrew Yang makes you a fucking pet of the state and nothing more. And they freak out on me for that. I'm like, I'm not proposing you become a pet of the state. That's not. We're not my angle. I want to circle back to something you said earlier about punching down. I don't know if you can tell. This is a Jimmy Dore T-shirt or sweatshirt. Keep punching up. And as far as I know, him and his associate and good friend of this show, Ron Placone, are the only other 2 people I've seen play that clip of Biden.
Yeah, and God bless them. I may not agree with them on everything, but at least they're getting out there and they're talking about real issues, and they are punching up. And Jimmy Dore, and it's kind of ironic because, Jimmy Dore spit in Alex Jones' face. Back when I had no idea who Jimmy Dore was, it wasn't until after I started seeing his stuff that I realized that, and I was like, oh, no kidding, he's the one who did that. And now to me, I mean, Jimmy Dore's platform, it may not be as large, but it's a hell of a lot more honest, you know, and we're going to have our disagreements. I have huge sometimes with that show. I have huge disagreements with Abby Martin, as I do with her brother, who I have on my show often. But that's okay. That's okay. Let's talk about it like civil people. Let's not call somebody a libtard or a cuckservative and play into the hate, man. You know, because that's what the media wants to play in. Sides are facing off. They're going to fight each other. Proud Boys versus Antifa. You know, Patriot Prayer. You know, that all the things that Carlin warns you about. You know, listen, if we're going to get together, the truth of the matter is that's great. Chances are you're not really doing anything unless it's a large crowd who's together against a small predator class. If it's a large crowd versus a large crowd, I got news for you. You're probably being manipulated and lied to.
That is 100% correct. You can tell if your protest is legitimate or not by whether it has corporate fucking sponsors. And if your protest has corporate sponsors, it's not a protest, it's a parade. You can go and have a parade, but tell people it's a fucking parade. Don't act like you're there to strike for the climate. You're not. You wanted to go to a parade. You went to a fucking parade. Like, it's cool. You know, it's cool. But don't act like you're there for the Women's March when you've got Debbie Wasserman Schultz as one of your speakers. Maybe you look good in a knitted hat. Maybe you do. You know? And you wanted to show off your brand new knitted hat. Like, that's fine, but admit you went to a fucking parade.
Yeah. And I hope we see a change. I hope we see a shift. I'm not sure that we will. Right now, it's not looking too encouraging in 2019 on the way to those 2020 elections. They'll be here before you know it.
I know.
We're less than a year away now from those elections. You know, we're about 10 months, actually, maybe a little, right around 10 months away from those elections. And they're gonna keep distracting with this Trump-Ukraine thing for as long as that plays out. Their perjury trap, Russia investigation never played out because they knew there was no collusion. They were just hoping to get him in a seat like Manafort. Oh boy, that would have been so delicious. But at the end of the day, the permanent state is still here. The deep state that Peter Dale Scott talked about and coined so many years ago is still here and is not going anywhere. Otherwise, we would be out of Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. Just those ones. And believe me, we're in other places. We're surrounding the Gulf right now, trying to provoke Iran. We would not be in those places had we not had, number one, 9/11, and we had a thing.
Whoa. That was a swerve. I lost you there for a second, Jason.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's all right. Gordan, you are sideways. Jason, I know you got to wrap up. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you today. I hope that you will come back so we can have another conversation. And please let everyone know where they can find you. And yeah, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, sir. Let me see where my little mouse is. I don't know where my mouse disconnected. No, there it is. Okay. Great. Well, I am a documentary filmmaker behind Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order, and Shade the Motion Picture. You can see all of those for free right here at my YouTube channel, in which I do 3 to 7 videos a day on subjects I think that matter. Everything from Epstein to Nexium to automation to school shooting drills to the Technopoly and more. So please come check us out there. But in the playlist section, you can get my documentaries if you want to support me. I got to GoFundMe. That's all. There's no Patreon. There's no Subscribe Star. I'm not doing private Skype chats with nipple twisting. I've got no secret sources or no courses for you to take. I've just got my information that I make freely available to everybody. And I encourage people to do that Because why are we hiding those things? We should be sharing with one another. There shouldn't be a paywall on information.
All right, Jason. Well, thank you again. And yeah, if you guys are just meeting Jason for the first time, I highly recommend his show. I highly recommend you check him out.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I am very pleased to welcome back to the show my friend from the Midlands. Man, I can't say enough nice things about you, Gordan, so I'm not going to fawn all over you. Ladies and gentlemen, Gordan Dimmack, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, mate. I'm hoping that you can hear me okay. I've had to dial in on my phone because I'm not actually back at home at the moment. I'm down in London to cover this rally, so I don't leave back until the morning. So I'm hoping you can hear me okay.
I can hear you fine, sir. The audience will be pretty quick to tell me if they can't, and then we'll adjust from there.
Yeah, I usually find that too.
I appreciate you coming on today. Yesterday, and this sucks to admit, man, but yesterday I woke up with, I slept for about 25 minutes the night before. I had a toothache. I could not get to San Francisco to the consulate there to participate in the rally. I was going to have to spend about 9 hours on public transportation, and I couldn't fucking do it. But I'm very, very happy. It kept me going to see your updates and other people's updates. Will you please let us know what was going on at Belmarsh yesterday?
Yeah, there's a great activist over here. Excuse me. Excuse me. There's a great activist over here who's done a lot of work on behalf of Julian Assange and for Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, called Emily Button, and she helped arrange this rally at Belmarsh Prison, and there was probably about 150 people, maybe around that, between 100 and 200 people turned up, and yeah, we went there, and there were some speeches, and lots of people got together, and obviously the media didn't talk about us at all, but we took it straight to the doors of Belmarsh Prison, and one guy, Kieran, who slept outside the Ecuadorian embassy for about 120 days because he felt like Julian Assange was going to be captured. He's now actually keeping watch outside Belmarsh Prison. He said, "We've come to pick up our mate Julian." And that really was it was a good day. It was a good day. There were 4 times as many people, I think, than the last time we were there. So certainly word's getting out of how important this is.
That's very good to hear. We just recently found out what we all had suspected, that Julian was being heavily monitored while he was in the embassy. That all of that information was either given or sold to the U.S. more or less immediately. That recently just found out that Julian's lawyer would bring in edible paper and take notes and then eat it. Did you saw that article, right?
I saw an article about El Pas, about the surveillance. I haven't had a chance to read it because it's only come out in the last 2 days. And like I say, I've been down here for the rally, but they even had surveillance in the female toilets for certain visitors who came. Female visitors who came and seen, they were surveilled in the toilets. So this is how bad the surveillance of him was. Whilst it was in the embassy, remember this was, whilst it was in asylum there, this is how his hosts were treating him at the whims of the CIA, along with the Spanish surveillance firm. So this has gone on for quite some time, obviously.
Which is, I mean, and I keep using this word today to describe these horrific situations, but it's typical now. We have to, along with expressing outrage and standing in support for what is ultimately the liberation of Julian Assange, we've got to grow an awareness and a movement towards fighting for our privacy again, fighting back against what is a global intelligence network that propagates national security states as the de facto form of government for all of these quote-unquote independent and free nations.
Yeah, this is why it's so important. This is why it's so important we all do whatever our part is. You know, obviously you said you couldn't get to, couldn't get to the 9 hours bus right there to the visual, that's the thing. But, you do so much more as well. It's not just about the visuals. It's not just about the protest. It's not just about, getting out in the streets. It's also simple things like talking to people and explaining to them just how important this is. Explaining to them that if one person hasn't got human rights, then it's an illusion. Nobody has. Explaining to them that if we don't have an operating for the state, a working free press that are holding power account, guess what? We don't have democracy. It's a sham. It's an illusion. It's been taken from you by rich bastards who want all the power and they don't want to give you any of it. And once you explain to people how important things are, once you explain to people just how persecuted this man has been, not for him himself. They try to make out that Julian Assange is egotistical, he was not, taken to the magistrate's court after he was dragged out of that prison in that fascist act. But he's doing this for us. It's not for him. It's for us. He's doing it. He's being persecuted for his virtues, as Chris Hedges rightly said. And once you explain this to people, once people start to understand this is bad, they really do feel that this is an injustice and they want to do something. And people are shocked when it's only their only source of information has been the mainstream media. And when the mainstream media and the media over here, 44 owns 80% of all the media that people see, then that means 86% of people are probably going to be propagandized and misinformed about it. So once they find out about it, that's when people start getting pissed off, and that's when people start acting. And like you say, it's not just about the visuals. It's writing letters. It's getting on Twitter. It's getting in journalists' their faces on Twitter, although they can now switch you off. That's Big Brother's way of stopping any dissenting voice from getting out there. But you've got to keep the pressure on, because otherwise these bastards are just going to take all your rights away. And you know what? It's your children that are going to bear the brunt of it, and they're never going to forgive you.
No. I mean, I can't agree with that more. I'm glad you brought up the new Twitter censorship thing too. I reported on this when Twitter announced back in, I believe, July, that they were testing out this new hide replies feature in Canada. And I said at the time, like, this is how they're going to keep confusion manufactured throughout this election. Now we've got this distraction with impeachment, but you're right. What is going on is 100% Big Brother stepping in and saying, no, there will be no... The public will not be allowed to view dissenting opinions. Dissent is now forbidden on social media. Facebook has all kinds of ways to censor people, but this is a direct act of, if you're a blue tick and you don't want a counter to your narrative, you now have the ability to control that, and it's fucking disgusting.
I love the way that they explained why they did it. This statement was I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something like to fight against censorship, we are given the ability to hide replies. It was something like that. That's an oxymoron, pal, what you've just done, Jack. You need to have a word with yourself. The good thing about this is, and it's really, it does feel really terrible, obviously, the censorship on social media, etc., and it's just going to get worse. We know that, I've been around now for 18 months, but those people in independent media who've been around much longer than I and you and I, they'll tell you that this has been coming in stages. It's not censorship, and it's not come all at once, because if it came all at once, there'd be an outcry. You know, so they do it in stages. You have the frog in the water that's being gradually heated up, and you don't recognise. Although that's actually wrong. I've heard recently that frog will just jump out the fucking pan. So, but I do have some optimism in that there are other platforms that are now coming to the fore. You mentioned Rockfin the last time I came on, and Kim.com was on the Kaiser report this week, and it looks like his platform K.im, which is totally decentralized and uses cryptocurrency, etc. That looks like that's going to be launching at any month now by the end of the year. And we all know, if your viewers don't know who Kim.com is, Kim.com is the genius behind Mega Upload. I think it was Mega Upload as a share filing site that you probably, if you've been around on the internet for a while, got a lot of videos from. I know I did. And yeah, he's facing extradition to the United States at the moment. He's a New Zealander for one of these cases, these secret cases that they do, just like Julian Assange. He's a friend of Julian Assange's, and his platform's about to launch. So I'm hoping that with him and with people like Rockfin and maybe Minds is another good platform as well. The rise of these minds, these platforms, is going to help us and help free speech still survive. And you know what? These social media companies, I don't think they've realised that the success is fleeting. You know, we all know what happens to MySpace. You know, these things go. They have cycles, and I do believe that this censorship that they're putting down on people, eventually people will just back the fuck out of it and just go to places where they're not going to be silenced, because you know they silence all the wrong kind of people. And once you start it's not silencing all the wrong kind of people. It's once you start to silence anybody. That you're fucked.
Yeah.
As soon as you start to cite even terrorists, because you look at the problem Twitter have got at the moment. I read this. It was an article a couple of months ago. You know, one of the reasons it was a Twitter employee. He asked, why if we silence terrorists and if we silence some sort of activist groups for hate speech, etc. Why don't we silence neo-Nazis on Twitter? Why don't we silence neo-Nazis? And the answer that came back was, oh, well, if we do that, the algorithm also silences a lot of conservative right-wing voices in America.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? It means that you are actively silencing people unfairly, and you're not doing it unilaterally. And this is why you can't do it. Once you silence one kind of type of people, one person, you start going down a rabbit hole that is just going to lead to an authoritarian state taking control, and that's what we've got right now.
Well, and that's what drives me nuts about the what passes for progressive media or what passes for independent left media on YouTube, who advocate the deplatforming and censoring of people. And it's like, okay, I guess the dominant narrative is, or at least the way it seems to be playing out in fucking real time, Gordon, is that you can no longer be a part of the left unless you're authoritarian. Unless you promote, like huge government. Unless you promote, like the giant centralized government. And that's not where I am. Brother, I'm way down in that like corner with Emma Goldman, and like Chomsky's up over here for me, and I recoil to authoritarianism of any form. I don't care what color the hat is or the armband or whatever, like that doesn't matter to me. I'm just reflexively put back by that kind of style of government, because it ultimately leads to the silencing of all genuine information. And it doesn't matter if your hat says you're a right-wing fascist or if you're a fucking left-wing fascist. It doesn't matter when there's a merger of corporation and state and censorship and control of the narrative is something that is determined by a small group of people for the sole purpose of protecting their own interests, that's fucking fascism, man.
Yeah, I talk about this on my show a lot. This whole left-right paradigm, I really try and fight against it. You know what? It's getting to the stage now where people stop me in the street because people know me. I've been around now 18 months, and people come up to me in the street or at rallies and whatever. And one of the things that I get said most of all to me is, "Dude, I'm not a left-winger. I'm nowhere near you on the political spectrum, but I agree with most of the shit you say." And that's one of the things that people say to me most. And I always look at them as if to say, well, are you really a right-winger then? Because, the Overton window's been shifted so far long now. They're saying that Hillary Clinton is a centrist. She's not a centrist. She's an authoritarian right-winger. If you go for policy by policy, she's basically Margaret Thatcher. You can say the same over here about the leader of the Liberal Democrats. Her name is Jo Swinson. She's the reincarnation of Margaret Thatcher. This is somebody who is the leader of the Liberal Democrats. And she's the right-wing authoritarian who voted for bedroom tax cuts, all sorts of horrible measures under the Tory government. Now, one of the reasons why I rail against this left-right paradigm is because, you know what, I think most people have misguided themselves anyway, because there's so much disinformation out there as to what is left, what is far left, and what is far right. And there's no nuance anymore. I don't think necessarily that our governmental systems, the way we have them now, is the way to go forward. We've had them hundreds of years. We've moved on. We've now got technology and advancements that can allow us to utilise all sorts of manner of ways to get the most, to get the fairest and best possible outcome. And I think the way our governments run are archaic. But at the moment, we're certainly not going to change that until we take the power back off them. Nothing. I keep saying this to people. No rights were ever given. They had to be fought, and people had to lay down their lives in there sometimes for them. Certainly if you looked at the civil rights march over there, for instance, people lost their lives trying to fight for these things. And they're always going to try and take them back, and the power is always going to try and keep control, and they're always going to try and consolidate that within them. This is why we've got to fight back against it. It's only by people power that this is going to change. The politicians, the fucking board, Colin was right. They're in the back pocket. The judges are in the back pocket. The landowners, all own the most land. Especially if you look at the United Kingdom. I mean, you guys are 5 minutes old in America. We go back fucking centuries. All the landed gentry in here are far more wealthy and have far more influence than they do over in America, I would submit to you. So we've got to fight back against that. That's what we've got to fight back. And some of the people that are going to do it, the MPs are not going to do it, the press are not going to do any favours and educate people with regards to this. The only thing we can do it is do it ourselves and do it on decentralised platforms if we can, where people are not going to get silenced. And I'm not going to find that on Twitter or Facebook.
No, you're not. No one is. Decentralization is becoming a regular theme. And I mean, Jason Bermas, when he was on, mentioned it. We talk about it exhaustively.
Great guy. I've seen his stuff on We Are Chain.
Yeah. No, he's fantastic interview guest and a great host, and presents it honestly and gets just as annoyed as you or I do when political spin is what is being delivered instead of actual information. And the way that happens is through decentralized means. If you're reporting on the document and not the spin created around the document, if you're reporting on the court transcript and not how the lawyer or the prosecution told it, then you're doing actual journalism, Well,
look at what you're facing at the moment, Steve. Sorry to cut you off. Look at what you're facing at the moment with this fucking Ukraine stuff. Honestly, they're calling it. It's ridiculous what's going on over there. That is, you can't get a clearer case of corruption than what's happened with Biden. You can't get a clearer case of it. and to try and come out with some and manufacture some whistleblower when it's not a whistleblower. A whistleblower blows like state secrets on your government that are doing against the people. A whistleblower doesn't do spook stuff for the CIA on behalf of the CIA against people that they don't want. That's not a whistleblower. That's a CUNT.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I agree, and I mean I talked about this a little bit earlier on the show, but I was watching Consortium News live yesterday, I'm sorry, that's right. I mean, I watched that Friday, but John Kiriakou was on Jimmy Dore's show yesterday, and he was breaking down how the CIA gets someone to the White House, and that guy that is this whistleblower is there on orders of the CIA to report to the CIA, not because he's there to protect the president or aid the president. And the information that this ladder-climbing careerist delivered is admitted hearsay, not that that's even, relevant to the scope of this story, because Trump is doing what every other president has always done. The only difference is he's doing it with zero fucking tact.
Yeah, it's there's a guy, writer over here called John White, and he says that Trump is the monster with the mask removed. And that is perfect for me, because he's not doing anything really that America haven't been doing for the last 40 years. He's just doing it out in the open, and he's not the statesman that Obama was, and he's not got the eloquence that Obama has and the silver tongue to be able to say, we tortured some folks and it sounded okay. Trump, when Trump says it sounds a little bit worse. He's the monster with the mask removed. I think John White is absolutely correct. And I remember saying this before I even started my channel. It was back in 2016, and Trump had just been elected. And I remember saying, you know what, Donald Trump becoming Prime Minister might be the best thing that has ever happened to the planet. Because, we might start to see the horribleness of American foreign policy and really see the mass start to tear back. And obviously, by extension, the UK's as well, because we're always there hanging on to your coattails.
Well, it seems like that at times, and then at times it seems like we're just following the lead of whatever ruling elites are backing the Queen's play, and fucking like the whole thing that Susie Dawson brings up. When she's disclosing information on the Five Eyes, the thing that's always struck me is that the Five Eyes are the UK and her white colonies, former colonies. Canada, United States, New Zealand, and Australia.
New Zealand, yeah.
And it's like the way that the information flows. And the way that, like, for example, the Hong Kong protests is a clear coordination of at least half or more of the Five Eyes organizations, and the fact that Hong Kong is a former UK colony in and of itself, like, that kind of seems like this particular color revolution originates from MI5 more so than it does the CIA. That's speculation on my part, and I apologize for that.
No, I mean, to be fair to you, you might be onto something, because if you listen to Snowden, he says, however bad you think that the spying on their own people and the unconstitutional spying is in America, much worse in the UK. He said that years ago, and he said that consistently. I've heard him several times mention it. So you might be onto something, mate.
Christy Doff, who my co-host on you've had her on this.
Yeah, no, Christy.
She was wondering, and I thought it'd be a great opportunity to ask. Are there like other independent UK journalists? Because we know about you. We know about George Galloway. I don't know how truly independent Galloway and he's been excellent. Puts on a fantastic show. That George. But I mean, are there people that you know of or recommend that are trying to do like a truly, you know, outside of the narrative show over there?
I don't think so. There were not many. There are some people around who do good work, but I'm not sure whether they're, you know, the independent part. I don't know. That, you know, I really do think I'm probably. Yeah, I don't see too many really independent people. I do, you know, but there are people I could say, but I don't know who funds them, so I can't tell you. All I know is, you know, the people fund me.
Yeah, that's the point that, or I guess the way that I tried to answer it poorly in our text this morning, was that the people that I'm aware of from the UK that have done like quote unquote independent media were all pushing a far right wing narrative, and it didn't, like, they were presenting themselves as independent, but in reality they were helping getting conservative MPs elected to Parliament.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of people who are funded by nefarious people beyond the scenes and have got an agenda. My only agenda is very much the same as yours, and that's the truth. And I honestly feel is that if more people had that agenda and we concentrate on that more, rather than the spin, like you say, read the document rather than spin around it, I do think that humanity might have a chance. But until we do that, we're fucked.
And here's the thing, man. There's people that represent independent content creators who, you know, 90 to 99% of their show is to talk about the political horse race because that's what generates the clicks and it generates that ad revenue, or it'll bring in, and then you can kind of 5 to 10% of the time hit people with some outside of the narrative stuff to sort of wake them up, but it's still pandering to mainstream constructs, establishment constructs, and it drives me fucking crazy. Like, if I hear something about Julian Assange on quote-unquote left media, it's tucked away way deep in the show. There's nothing in the title, because if they put his name in the title of a video, it gets demonetized because, you know, he exposes crimes of empire and of giant tech companies, and fucking YouTube is owned by Google, which is an Alphabet subsidiary, and Eric Schmidt was like waist deep in CrowdStrike, and there, you know, it's all connected. And when you tell people that it's all connected, or if I were to sit down in a coffee shop and pull up the unredacted CIA website, you know, the CIA's own website, and read off out loud off of their own website their unredacted reports or their declassified reports about things that they did in the name of the country, people would look at me like I'm crazy. Flip the thing and have them read it for themselves, and they'd be like, "That's fake. That's not that's not the CIA's real website."
Yeah, it can be really disheartening, and I mean, I've railed against it a lot. You know, the disinformation out there and the misinformation, especially from state actors. But the genie's out of the bottle now. They can't put this back in the bottle. What's out there on the internet, they can't put it back in the bottle. All they can do is try to restrict the flow of information, which is what they're trying to do. But eventually, people will migrate away from Twitter and migrate away from Facebook in the West and whatever. And, you know, Facebook are already... You've got to understand that Facebook and Twitter, their main aim is not to appease governments. Their main aim is to make money. That's what they've got investors, they've got, you know, their shareholders that they've got to appease. So they're going to try and make money. So they're going to, you know, Facebook are expanding into developing nations now, and Twitter are doing the same and whatever. So Twitter won't care if 100 million, I don't know, I'm pulling these figures out of my hair, but an example, you know, if 100 million leave from the West, if they pick up 200 million from developed countries in Africa and Asia, you know, these So that's where their focus is going to be. And meanwhile, people in the West they're going to migrate to where the action is. They're going to migrate to where the content is. And if the content is on decentralized platforms, because it's been silenced on places like Twitter, people naturally migrate over to them. Eventually, they're going to this silencing and this appeasement of governments and governmental control with the stick of censorship. Oh, we need you to do this, otherwise we're going to come in and break you up. And sooner or later, them bending to that will is going to backfire on them. And I mean, they'll be okay for so long. They'll go away along with it for so long, because the governments they don't want this information out. But sooner or later, people are going to get pissed off and leave. And I think it's going to happen. I really do. And I hope that these new platforms that are coming out now are really going to dawn a new age of free speech. That's what I'm hoping anyway. But I am an eternal optimist.
I'm fairly cynical in my observations, but I do harbor enough idealism or hope or whatever you want to call it that we are in a period of almost international waking up. That as you mentioned, the genie's out of the bottle. One of my very first episodes of this show was titled, "Is the Internet Pandora's Box?" And we came to the conclusion through the end of that conversation that, well, fuck yeah, the internet is Pandora's box, and there are lots of bells that you can't unring. There's a lot of information that you can't just immediately excuse away. And that's why there's so much censorship. That's why they're coming at independent content creators so hard. That's why for every 1 or 2 subscribers that YouTube lets me have, 20 or 30 people subscribe to the show. I watch it happen in real time. And then I get 1 or 2 that count. Same thing on Twitter. People will follow me all day. I'll check the next day and I have the exact same follow count that I did the day prior. Like, it's... they're trying so hard that even people who are exhausted and can barely pay attention are starting to notice. And that's what gives me hope.
Well, to put things into perspective for you, and I do like to try and put things into perspective, especially because I'm an animated person who goes nuts on my show on a regular basis, as you probably know. But I found something out.
One of the reasons I invite you on.
One of the things that I found out recently is people were looking at they were trying to come up with the equation. I think it's the Planck's equation or something. Anyway, they were trying to come up with the equation. It's sort of like the building blocks and how subatomic particles are it's very scientific anyway. And they finally found out that it's basically a mathematical code that's a bunch of zeros and ones. And they found out that mathematical code that is a bunch of zeros and ones that basically explains the life and the building blocks of life and the whole of the universe. It's exactly the same as the thing that you will find that drives a search engine, just Safari, Firefox, your Internet Explorer. It's exactly the same code. So, I mean, that will put it into perspective. Maybe we all are data, after all.
I have speculated or postulated or theorized more than once throughout my entire life, but certainly here on the show, that this is in fact a simulation. But what I think can come of that is a sort of transcendence. I think that's what our isms don't work. They haven't. Everyone has failed, and it's only going to take some form of collective human ascension. What that necessarily looks like or how that happens, I don't know, but I know that it's not by putting all of our stock in previously failed experiments.
Yeah, and it's certainly not it's not putting all our stock into giant corporations who are sponsoring stuff. I heard what you're saying on about that, and I couldn't, movement, protests shouldn't have sponsors. Movements shouldn't have sponsors. Because if Burger King are sponsoring gay pride down in London, you can bet your ass there's only one reason Burger King are doing that, and that's to make money out of it. So movements shouldn't be about making money. Movements should be about not making money and doing what's right, regardless of it. And how long it's going to take for people to realise that, your guess is as good as mine, mate.
Yeah. Gordan, I know you only had a certain amount of time, so whenever you need to hop off, let me know.
I'm literally going to have to go very, very soon. I mean, you probably can't see.
Okay, well then, in that case, man,
I'm actually in my pajamas. I'm knackered after this weekend. After the chat.
In that case, will you please let people know where they can find you and kind of the direction that your show's going now?
If you can find me on at Gordan Dimmack on Twitter. That's the Dimmack, and on YouTube and GordanDimmack.com. The direction my channel is going in, I'm not a cheerleader, and people I think have mistook me for a cheerleader just because I've said some nice things about Jeremy Corbyn in the past. I've said some nice things about Trump in the past. He's not all horrible. So far he hasn't got us into a hot war. That's great. But the direction my channel is going in is just the same as it always has. I'm going to be in pursuit of truth. I'm going to try and find out things that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to try and decipher things in a way that makes people understand it, that makes the average person understand it, makes me understand it. Because if I can understand it, then I can break it down and package the information in a way that hopefully educates people rather than propagandizes them. And that's something that I think our media should do, and it's something that our media don't, and they haven't done for quite a while. And this is why we've got a deep state and national security state basically running roughshod over the world at the moment. And it's got to change, mate. It's got to change.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I am very grateful that you were able to spend some time with me today and get some rest. And thank you.
You're doing fantastic, Steve. You're doing fantastic, and your work is great. Just keep it up and keep fighting, mate, and just keep going.
That's definitely gonna happen. Yeah, Gordan. Shit, man. All the love there, brother. You keep fighting. You keep doing what you do, and thank you so much for so consistently standing for Julian Assange.
Thanks very much, mate. I really appreciate it.
All right. Everyone. All right, guys. I wanted to remind you that it is day 200 of the incarceration of Chelsea Manning, and she is now at $91,000 in fines. Y'all, Gordan Dimmack, I love that guy. That is man, that was fun. I hope you guys had fun with those two guests, man. I certainly did. I really appreciate both of them coming on. I am very stoked that there were 150 or so people that showed up to Belmarsh yesterday. I think for the last little bit here, we kind of go through the chat. Hey Quinn, hey Dave, Karen, Chili, Freethinker, Martyr, Anthony Reyes, Jeff Alderman, how you guys doing? JJ Stink. Reefer Revolution Live is a fantastic show. Dave and Chella have a dearth of experience on I guess they're an all-encompassing cannabis extravaganza is what I would say. But they have fantastic guests on that show. They cover the cannabis movement throughout the country, and will literally go section by section of the country to let you know what's going on with that. They do good stuff. They do. In fact, hello, Jilly. I'm gonna go ahead and hit some live resin right now. You have 4,911 Google's users blocked. That is that's some dedication, bro. That is. I'm stoked to be on today too. I was feeling like absolute hammered shit yesterday. The good vehicle that we have, the tires are shit. And I tried like hell to get it into any shop in the fucking Santa Cruz Mountains on Friday, because we've got 4 tires that were on Ford rims, and this is a Honda, and we needed to take the matching size tires off the bullshitter rims and put them on the rims on the actual vehicle, and that did not happen. What's happening, man?
Not much. Let's go.
All right, talking to the internet, meow.
How you go?
Yeah. You'd kill for some live resin. I'm very, very fortunate here in that especially Santa Cruz County has been kind of a pioneer in the cannabis movement throughout the decades. And you can't. I mean, I came here because of the industry. No bullshit. And I will forever be connected to the industry. But I know a guy who knows a guy, and so I don't have to pay retail for these cartridges, and I appreciate that. I always appreciate not paying retail. When I first moved to California, Jilly, I lived in McKinleyville, and I worked a couple of farms outside of there. I've spent a lot of time in Arcata. I've spent a lot of time in Mendocino. I was talking, might have been last week, about Spy Rock Road outside of Laytonville. Oh yeah, it was because Robert Hunter had just passed away, and we got on the Grateful Dead for a minute. But Spy Rock Road, there was a ton of properties that at one point or are still currently owned by extended family of the Grateful Dead, like Robert Hunter and Bob Braylove and John Barlow and Ramrod, their forever roadie. The Iron Freak fire truck is parked on Spy Rock Road. California on its worst day still beats the rest of the world. Yeah, until you gotta spend fucking $50 at the grocery store and walk out with 2 bags, or, you know, pay $4.19 a gallon for gas. Like, the California is truly one of the better places on the planet to live, but the zip code comes with a fucking brutal cover charge. It really does. Yeah, absolutely. Camp Winter Rainbow. They're saying don't trust any TKO or dank cartridges. Well, okay, so if you're going to a club, yeah, I agree with that. The cartridge itself isn't a problem. It's what you decide to use for terps or what you decide to use in your extraction process that makes it fucked up. So I think if you know your source, and again, I'm fortunate because I do. or you know, at least one of my sources, like, I know I can go and fucking hang out, and you know, if I wanted to, I could sit there and fill my own fucking cartridges, which I don't because it's boring as fuck. Israel might do the most amazing and groundbreaking research in cannabis, mostly funded by the NIH, but they are not as enlightened about cannabis as you would think, and vaping reefer madness explodes. You know what, Dave? From the bottom of my heart, fuck an apartheid state with their fucking genocidal regime, and if they're doing groundbreaking research in cannabis, it's fucking, there's no greenwashing that. If we want to continue to be pioneers in the cannabis movement, we should not take our cues from that fucking government or anything that they produce. And here's the thing, man, more often than not, like, the tech startups in Israel are formed by former members of Unit 8200, which is their NSA. I don't think that this is a genuine grower movement if they're as unhip to cannabis as you're saying, and I believe you. I've watched your show enough and had you on mine and consider you to be an honest and professional voice about this. I don't think that this is a literal grassroots movement by Israeli cannabis growers. I don't whatever research that comes out of it, I'm gonna pass. Have you seen the Have you seen the Grow Talk channel called Dudes Grocery? No, man. And here's the thing, Quinn. Like, I'll catch some stuff, but in terms of going to watch people's shows, like, I really don't, like, I'll look because you recommended it, but yeah, I don't even get to watch a lot of content anymore. I'm trying to trying to do the thing myself. So it's hard. I don't get to watch a lot of other people's stuff, and people send me videos all the time, and I try to get to it, but more often than not, I'm just as backlogged on my fucking chores at home as I am trying to catch up on media. Please remember that Netanyahu is a verifiable 33rd degree Jesuit Mason who answers to the Vatican and papacy is a Jesuit co-opted, just the same as America is thoroughly co-opted. Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to refute much of that, William. It really is. You know, the understocked dispensaries seem to be a problem in a lot of states that move towards cannabis because all of the state governments want to over-regulate, and counties want to get in on it. If you have any sort of way to, like, triple or quadruple tax cannabis, most counties are into that and go for that. It's fucking out of hand. And the requirements that they set in order for you to be able to sell your product in their stores are fucking ridiculous. So you wind up in Nevada. There was like one of their first test runs, they almost instantly ran out of weed, and then they were like, we can't fucking get any more. We've got to wait until like the 6 legal growers we gave permission to do this can fucking harvest a new crop. It's setting themselves up to fail, and it should be the easiest fucking thing in the world to figure out how to sell weed. But California really fucked up and doesn't know how to sell weed. Like, the people do, but legal and recreational cannabis was not created and passed for the people. It was created and passed for corporate cannabis. So of course they're gonna fuck it up. That's what they do. That when you remove all of the humanity from the product, when you make it, such a fucking routine, uniform assembly line operation, large scale operation, you're quite literally doing nothing more than fucking working for a factory farm. And the thing about factory farms is they always push out small and medium, long time generational hometown growers every single time. East Coast besides Maine is big cannabis haven. No craft cannabis besides Maine. Overregulations abound. Yeah, the guy that I worked for a couple of years here lately, he's from Massachusetts, and he doesn't even try. Like, when he goes home to visit his family, he'll send money in advance and have his buddy go pick it up from a club or whatever. But I don't know, man. I don't know. Massachusetts is known for over-regulating everything. New Jersey makes Mass look like Colorado. No homegrown in New Jersey and wicked expensive. That sucks. I doubt someone is coming from Maine to Jersey for anything under a couple of pounds. No shit. I agree with that. Gavin Newsom has yet to sign the compassionate cannabis bill to eliminate state tax for groups like Weed for Warriors that donate cannabis. Brown vetoed it. Gavin need money for the new camp raids. Yeah, if you guys don't know, and if you live in California and you don't know this, man, because recreational cannabis passed, it opened the door for Gestapo tactic law enforcement and a hearkening back to the camp days, because only X amount of people can grow, only certain areas are designated legal to grow. This place, the Santa Cruz Mountains, one of the leading producers of cannabis in California. Humboldt gets way more credit than we do, and to their credit, they have a lot more space to work with. Whereas the Santa Cruz Mountains in and of itself, you could fit like 3 dozen of it up in Humboldt County. But we do our part, But 0 permits for this area were issued by the county of Santa Cruz for legal grows, which 100% paves the way for extreme law enforcement crackdown. And Gavin Newsom knew that. Gavin Newsom is a fucking little shiny-haired imperialist authoritarian bastard in his own right. South Park hit Madmen pretty good this week with turgidity weed. Neat. I'll fucking try and get that. Check out recent cannabis law. Grow up to 2 plants, but law likely to be struck down by the federal government corporation. That sucks. It's so counterintuitive for giant capitalists, especially predatory capitalists, to not take advantage of legalizing cannabis. But if the idea is anything like that New Jersey model where you can't even grow your fucking own at home, what's the goddamn point? Like that's just yeah, 2 plants, dig a big hole. Dig a big hole. You'll be alright. What time do we have? Back when camp was started, they were funded by Budweiser. Yeah, and they were funded by a couple other organizations besides Budweiser, but Budweiser had a huge part in that. There are more licenses for cannabis dispensaries in Tulsa, Oklahoma than in Los Angeles. Dave, you know how I feel about that, dude. Only California can fuck up selling weed as bad as California is fucked up selling weed. The law they were proposing didn't include homegrown, and I'm sure Pfizer was going to monopolize. And that's the thing, man. If you personally are a grower, then you need to get in on that genetics game as quick as possible, because that's where the only fucking cash out of this is gonna be in a decade. If you're not the proud fucking owner of a cannabis strain patent, you're going to be doing what small and medium growers have been doing the entire time, which is barely getting by and supporting your family, if you're lucky, hoping to God that you don't get raided and robbed or fucking catch that bud rot or the fucking million other things that can go wrong with your cannabis plants. We could have sworn 2 years ago that fucking planes were dropping seeds. It was that bad. Support your local black market. They put their assets and asses on the line for the people. I agree. Hey, look, man, I am not the guy who's going to promote doing everything by the book, man. You're not gonna catch that here. It looks like people are showing up to go unload, and again, this is a working recording studio, music studio, so there's people in and out to play music and shit like that. It is just about noon, so I should wrap it up. I want to thank very, very much Jason Bermas and Gordan Dimmack for joining me today. They were absolutely fantastic. If you are not currently subscribed to the show and you would like to, please go ahead and do that. Hit the like on these videos. I have over 100 different videos now. I've been at this for just about a year here on YouTube. Prior to that, I've done a lot of independent and even a little bit of quote-unquote mainstream media. I briefly worked for The Nation. That was kind of weird. Chris Hayes was my boss. I got fired by Chris Hayes. That was fucking a badge of honor. But if you currently support independent media, and you would like to add this channel to the other channels that you currently subscribe, I do have a Patreon. There's no tiered anything. If you want to support the show, you can. If you don't. If you want to and can't, please don't. Don't spend money that you don't have. And you can find that at patreon.com/slownewsday. If you need an alternative way to do that, feel free to contact me. You can hit me up on Twitter at slownewsdayshow. You can email the show at slownewsdaypodcast@gmail.com. Once again, big thanks to Jason Bermas and Gordan Dimmack. My name is Steve Poikinen. This has been Slow News Day, and good luck to us all.